art of leading beyond your leadership. And a lot of us are in our, I don't think any, are you in your 30s? Yes. Okay, I think you're the only one. The rest of us are in our 40s, 50s, maybe 60s, I'm not sure. Back row doesn't like this. 40s is good. Majority of us are in our 40s. But regardless of how old you are, that age doesn't matter, because at any time in your life, you can start working towards your legacy. And this is something I think about every day that I'm alive. I think about, and what I am doing, is it going to count for something that lasts longer than me? And even if I'm not physically doing it, I'm thinking about it, what this looks like, cultivating ideas, thinking about the vision. You know, this season will be over soon. We'll go through the holidays and 2015. I already have a pillow I found online, and I posted it. I don't know if you guys saw it. It said, 2015, let's do this. And that's really on my heart, because 2014 was such a transitional year. And we're 4 or 5 months into the transition. I'm having a meeting with Dr. Miles when we are at the leadership conference regarding the blueprint of what we worked on towards influencing the educational system and getting his ideas and his feedback on the ideas that we have. And so I think he'll be very excited to see what we put together. And Debbie's going to bring everything. We're going to get his feedback, and that'll also help us in planning and preparing ourselves for it. Now, pop quiz. What is the highest form of faith? Preparation. So you can plan, but when you're actually preparing for the plan and you're doing things, which is what we're doing and we will continue to do. So nothing has stopped, nothing has slowed down. So while we're doing this, I want you to have the understanding of why we're doing this also. Because as a true leader, this is our legacy that we're leaving, and how much more effective are we going to be as a community doing it together? That's what I fully believe in 100%. We can all make a contribution according to our gifts and our skills here locally first. And then when it's proven, tried, and true, then we can take it internationally, right? So that's part of the preparation, is working on it now locally in Collier County. And whatever that looks like is completely up to y'all. So we're going to focus tonight on the art of leading beyond your leadership. The weakest area of leadership is what we're going to be discussing tonight. This is the part of leadership that most organizations, ministries, and businesses do not focus on, and that's mentoring. And I know we talk about that a lot, and that has everything to do with your legacy, is mentorship. So that should be something that we should be proactive at doing, because that's where our legacy is. It's not in buildings. It's in people, building people. And I know that most of everybody's passion here is for the youth. That's where we're going to be mentoring. That's where the legacy is. It's generational. A true vision is always generational. And that's why this is what we're focusing on. So our goal is to intentionally train others. And that's why I've weaned you guys intentionally off of me, so then you can start, the demand will be more on you for your leadership gifts to evolve. Does that make sense? You guys see what's going on? Most leaders will never do that. Most leaders want you tied to their apron strings, or whatever you want to call it, and make you dependent on them. And that's due to insecurity, whatever reason, I don't know. But it's opposite of that in the kingdom, where a true leader will wean you off of them. And you guys can see that's intentionally been happening. So the greatest act of leadership is mentoring. The greatest accomplishment of leadership is succession. What's the root word in that word succession? What good students? Success. This is what will give you a successful life. And when we're long gone, people will be like, Janice was successful. She left a legacy because she had a succession. Failure to mentor a successor is cancellation of your legacy. Now, don't assume, even though this can be the case and should be the case, that necessarily your children are your legacy. That is not always the case. So don't assume that. You need to give them the freedom to discover themselves by themselves, for the most part. I mean, you lead and guide them. And they have their own vision. Now, if they wake up and come to the point where I want to be attached to the vision that you have and continue it as a legacy, give them the freedom to discover that for themselves. But don't assume it's always your children, because that is not always the case. And we even see that with Jesus. He left it to somebody who fought for the vision, who loved the vision, because it was about the people and bringing this kingdom to the people. Okay, so Jesus wanted to live through the disciples, thus through people. So he poured his whole life into them, and then he lived through who they discipled because he left his legacy in these people. So that's how he reaches everybody. So succession is movement, and it's continuity generationally, and will last beyond your lifetime. And that's what I'm always thinking of, is beyond my lifetime, and whatever that looks like. Succeed is to follow or go under. So succession preserves success in your life. And I know we live in a culture that determines what success looks like in America, right? According to the cars we drive, the clothes we wear, the brands, what neighborhood we live in, things like this. That's not by any definition of success according to the kingdom of God, and we know that. So then what does this look like? Well, we know what success is in the kingdom of God is living your passion and your purpose and accomplishing that in your lifetime. Yeah, I won't be able to hang out there. There we go. That's a good... What words? My PowerPoint was up? Oh, okay.
So I was trying to get it to turn on.
Oh, is this okay over here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So succession is the perpetuation of purpose. It keeps your dreams alive. We all have learned our purpose, discovered our passion, living that out, but how do you preserve your purpose? That's found in succession. So that's what our focus is going to be after this teaching, is what does this look like as a community with all of our gifts brought to the table together. And we have a very good idea, but we just need to fine-tune things. So mentoring is the greatest act of leadership, but yet this is the most failed portion of leadership, is mentorship. So it's serving as a model, an advisor, a counselor, a guide, a tutor, or an example for another to produce one greater than yourself. That's the goal. Your kids should be more successful in regards to the kingdom's definition of success than we are. Some of us got a little late start understanding all this, and that's okay, because it's never too late. But they should be more successful, the next generation, because you're giving them an amazing foundation that perhaps you didn't start out with. It is to intentionally transfer knowledge, insight, and wisdom through practical, intentional relationship. So that's the key to tonight, is what I really want us to focus on, is intentionally mentoring people, or the youth in our case. And then what does this look like? And how do we do this as a community? Because honestly, all of us live very busy lives. All of us have families, we have jobs, we have our own companies, and there's no such thing as you just work 9 to 5 anymore. So that's why I intentionally have weaned everybody off of me. Also, I'm not stupid, and I know I can't do this all by myself anyway, and I'd be stupid to think I could or would want to. That's ridiculous. So that's why we're all going to come together and brainstorm and fine-tune what we can do together as a community so it's not too much of a load on any one person. And that's teamwork. That's how it should be, but we haven't really seen that modeled anywhere. So we haven't really seen it. But it can be very effective as long as a community can stay together. And there's no bickering and you know. And then if somebody else has another vision, I remember somebody in our group last year came to me, and they were part of a nonprofit, and they said they were the chairperson, but somebody else in the vision had another vision for this nonprofit. And I said, well, listen, then you need to either resign or step up to the plate and say, this is the vision of the nonprofit organization that I'm chairing. So once you have vision, that brings division. And that'll just demolish everything. So that's why I wanted all of us to brainstorm so we could go into 2014, because I know the holidays are coming up. We all are very busy. We have families coming to town, or we're leaving, or it gets hectic this time of year. So I really wanted to start this process now before we got into the holidays, so we could 2015 hit the ground running. Okay. Succession never destroys the foundation you left. They build on top of it. They don't destroy it and tear it down. They improve it. They bring it to the next level. You guys see what happened with Moses? He could only take the people so far. And then Joshua, he was the one, the next generation, to bring it to the next level. Now, I realize that is the same case with Dr. Miles. He's the visionary, and he can implement it, but he's got to impart it into people, which is what he's trying to do, but it's hard for him to find the people without any motives, and they're not, doing their own thing, to impart into them, and they can take it and run with it. I've heard him talk about that. So I know that's the case with us, and then we will pass it on the next generation. So I'm always thinking 10, 20, 30, 40 years out. Because I'm 41, I'm like, okay, half of it's over, I know that. It's either now or never. I know, Alex, you think that's funny.
I changed it to a third.
A third, that's good, I like that, not halfway. So Jesus was very conscious of what he was doing for 3.5 years with the disciples. And then he was finally at the end, he was so frustrated because they weren't getting it. He's like, how long do I have to be with you guys? You still don't get it? Like,
He was literal when he said that.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't an allegory.
No.
Okay, I figured, because I was like, wow, he's really mad. Like, man.
Yeah. He's with them day and night. They live together, travel together, eat together. Imagine if we did this and all of us, how many are in this room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3 more. Like, you become a little tight-knit group. And you understand his thought process. You understand everything he's showing you. And then after 3.5, he's like, you still don't get it? Like, where's your head at? So, but he only spent 3.5 years. He's like, I got to go. I did my time with you guys. You got it now. Go and run with it. And he entrusted them with a vision, with a kingdom. That's amazing. With humans, he entrusted the kingdom. Okay. The 4 greatest failures of leadership. We must be very mindful of them so as we don't fall into the same trap. The greatest failure of leadership is unsuccessful succession. That's what happened with Joshua. He failed as a leader because he had no successor. And the Bible says Israel didn't know God. I don't know how that happened, but the generation after Joshua didn't know God. And it was on his shoulders because he didn't mentor them. He was mentored by Moses, but who did he mentor? It's not in there. It doesn't talk about him mentoring anybody. So again, this is the most important aspect of leadership that most people never attain. So the greatest weakness of leadership is mentoring, number 2. The greatest defect of leadership is insecurity. And that's why those leaders that will not mentor don't, because of insecurity. They're going to take my position. That's the point. So then you can move on to the next level in your vision. So if I'm trapped in a place in my life and there's no successor, how am I supposed to move on to the next phase of the vision? You're trapped. I don't want to be trapped nowhere doing nothing. That's the worst thing. And I know a lot of people are at that place in their lives, but I'm very mindful you move on. And I had let go of the reins here at the hotel many times. Well, a few years ago, especially when I had the baby. And I'm not micromanaging anymore, everything. Revenue manager, but that frees me up. Now I'm doing renovations. I'm planning for the next phase of the renovations. I'm having meetings every day this week regarding picking out tile. I'm preparing for my renovations for next year. So it's very important that I'm freed up to do that. So I have a GM in place, sales director. You guys understand how that goes. So it's the same as a business model. So the greatest fear of leadership is the success of their leaders, of their mentors. The greatest fear of leaders is the success of their mentors. Of insecure leaders, of ungodly leaders. Well, godly leaders too, but kingdom leaders, you want them to succeed. You want the best for them. Do you guys, who all went to the Bob Harrison event last month in Marco? A few of you. One of the speakers was sitting next to me with his wife at a luncheon. And I know Bert, if you guys remember who Bert was, he's the car dealer, the Honda car dealer from up north, but he lives here in Bonita. Very successful man. And we're sitting at the luncheon, and I don't know, something, I think Papa Miles was in the Q&A at the luncheon, and his wife and I were talking, and she said their sons work for them at the dealership, but the dad holds them down and doesn't want them to succeed. And I just looked at her. She goes, I know it's a problem, for the dad, for him. And I was just amazed. This is your own kid. It's like they don't want to give them wings to fly, right? And some of us have been guilty of that. But it's very important for our kids and for people we're mentoring. You guys remember when we were out at Immokalee? Was it in April? No, February? Last year. It was last year. That was a long time ago. And you spoke, H.E. spoke. Oh, you guys were visiting. I think you came that day, even though you were living in Atlanta still. And Xavier was on the ones and twos. Who else spoke? I think that's all I heard.
Brittany. Dorian, Brittany.
And Uni. I sat there in tears. I was so proud of everybody because they were up there being themselves. And I'm like, I get a taste of what this is supposed to feel like, to be like. I was so proud. I'm like, this has made everything I've done worth it. Hey, Rose. And then we were doing it as a community, too. And that was fun. That was a blast that day. I couldn't be there that long. I think I was with Maverick at the time that day. We were talking about the Immokalee event from last year, 2013. Yes.
First was. That was in April. That was this year.
Was it?
Yeah, in Immokalee. That was.
Okay. Oh, yes. I was thinking of the Hodges one, but I was talking about the Immokalee one this year. So I was so proud of everybody because they were given their time slot. They were being themselves. They were telling their story, and you guys were impactful. Now, who's talking like that and encouraging the kids like that? But, we're at an advantage here because we live here. We're not going anywhere. We're rooted here, and we should have a vested interest in our kids here. And so that's why we want to fine-tune our plan So I know you just walked in, but that's what we've been talking about. Then we will have credibility internationally. So, all right, leadership, number one, is a result of self-discovery. And this is why some leaders are insecure, because they don't know who they are. And then they meet somebody who knows who they are. Xavier's a very secure man. Like, he's not running around flexing his muscle, showing off, you know, just different things. You notice these things about people. And that's why when a leader meets somebody who knows who they are, they feel threatened. And sometimes people may not like you because of that very reason. And you didn't even do anything. But that happens to be the case. So leadership is not a right of the leaders, but a privilege given by the followers. So when we are training these youth, we're training them with this leadership principles that nobody's teaching them. So that then they can empower others. It's funny, the guy at the front desk that you guys saw working tonight, he's in school, and I saw his book today as I was walking out, and it's a book on leadership. And I did a double take, and you know what animal is on the front of this leadership book?
A lion?
No, you would think a lion. You know who the world's idea of leadership is? Penguins.
Oh.
Yeah.
2 penguins.
Back in Portland, they're all the penguin. Like, what's with the penguins?
I don't know. But if that is your example of leadership, that's pretty sad.
The movie Penguins 2 just came out, the sequel, so it's probably spin-off.
This is college, not preschool.
I think they're thinking of the teamwork. How many
Not elementary.
stick together?
He's in college.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Right, and they look at penguins as, because they live in groups, they work together.
They work together.
That's why.
And the baby. Unity.
Yeah.
They call the baby.
Yeah. And that's a valid point. But do they have the attitude of a leader? That's what makes a leader. A penguin doesn't have the attitude of a leader. Nah. So that's my point. Our kids are being trained in the wrong philosophy of leadership. I know, I knew that. I did a double take. I couldn't believe the animal they put on the front of that book. You guys will see it on your way out. Let us see. I'll have them put the leadership book at the front desk.
What school did you go to?
I don't know.
Mentally, what that puts the prediction in your mind of what a leader. You think a lot
Yeah.
of things, you're like, what? And when you get that, that's a good tactic from the enemy. Not good, but I understand that now because penguins a little just slap it over, so there's not too much domination with the penguin.
Right. Their attitude, because leadership and everything to do with your attitude.
Yeah.
Attitude. That's why God refers to the attributes of a lion to himself and an eagle to himself. Okay, we'll get off that. So never lose your passion because this keeps people following you. Those kids are looking for the real deal. And you guys, everyone in here has the real deal. We just need to be out there showing them what it looks like because they're not seeing it. A true leader is one who leads others to leadership. So not only do we show the kids what it looks like, we are what it looks like, but we teach them. Because you learn from emulating others. That's the only reason I understand what this looks like is because of Dr. Miles. I'd never seen anyone, other big shot, big wig come in and love the people. Usually they don't want anything to do with you. They run, they're out the door, and they're gone, in my experience in the church. And so now I understand what true leadership is because of the example. And that's why he likes us to be around him. So if we're out there representing the kingdom, we have to show the people, the world, what it looks like. So true leaders learn from others but never become them. So we're not making mini-me's. You don't want your kids to be mini-you. You want them to be them and the kids that we're mentoring. Very important. Okay, now, this is a very important concept I want us to understand about leadership because it's not what's been ingrained in our brains. True leadership is not like running a marathon where you run the whole race, everybody's running together, but one guy wins it. That's how a competitive market, capitalism, that's how it's portrayed. But rather in the kingdom, true leadership is more like a relay race. Everybody plays an equally yet very important part in the race. And everybody wins together. So you pass the baton to one another. So for instance, like right now in this setting at the hotel, in the group that we're doing tonight, I am the leader. I'm teaching, I'm the leader, I have the PowerPoint, I'm expressing kingdom philosophy tonight. Now, in other settings, like when we're at someone else's home, we're doing planning, and somebody else is the leader, and I sit back and I watch. You guys have seen me. I don't have a whole lot to input into this planning with the education system, so I just sit there and my little 2 cents every now and then, but you guys are leading that. And we refer to you. And in another setting, like in Immokalee, when we were out there, Rose and Vaughn were in charge. So because there has been a person that has complained, oh, we're in this meeting, I'm supposed to be in charge. And I'm like, hold on. It was a prayer meeting. Chill. So there's times where people don't have an understanding of leadership. They think they're in charge all the time everywhere they go, and that's not always the case. Like when I leave the hotel and I go home, I'm not supposed to be in charge.
How's that work?
Sometimes very well. Other times it doesn't work too good. Or I don't do too good with it. But that's one thing that I'm very well aware of. And in the hotel, like for instance, if we're at a banquet or we're doing something out here, the sales manager and the banquet manager are in charge. I don't come and try to run the show. That's their job. I pay them to do that. So I think perhaps that's why running a hotel for 2 decades has helped me understand the kingdom philosophy also, because it's the same philosophy. If you're a secure leader, that's why you can recognize the insecure and the secure ones, readily. It shows in their leadership philosophy. Okay, so leadership is about successful transitioning, which is what we've been doing this year. It's definitely been a year of transition. Now I'm relying on you guys to step up to the plate and start discipling and mentoring, and what does this look like? Together as a community, okay? So again, it's not one burden on one person. When your leg is finished is when you run out of ideas. Then you live in experience. So keep the ideas flowing. Don't keep them stopping. Yes?
You had mentioned that a while ago, when you go over 4 failed leadership. So
I did.
I don't know if you can go back to the
Okay.
first one or.
Number 1, unsuccessful succession is the first failure of leadership. Number 2, the greatest weakness of leadership is mentorship. Actually spending time dedicated, imparting into them. Number 3, the greatest failure of leadership is the insecurity. A leader being insecure. There's a lot of that. And number 4 is for other people to succeed. Some get very jealous of others and don't want them to succeed. When I see Melissa's pictures on Facebook in India with all these kids with all her books, I'm like, I love it. But the first, I know. And you don't have to be in India. You can be here raising your kid, but your idea lives beyond you. That's powerful. And every time I see those pictures, the first thing that comes to my mind, when am I going to see the draft of your second book? Do you have it? Yay! What's the name of it?
The Kid's King.
The Kid's King.
So it's all about the king with a little purpose in there too. Because I can't get away from it.
That's good.
So it's a little more focused on who the king is and what, because why.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yay. Every time I see those pictures, I want to see the draft of her next book. When is she going to have that done? That's exciting. Okay. Let's see what time it is. 7:22. Okay. So true leadership is always aware that their position is temporary. That's a tough one for leaders to swallow. That's tough, but it is temporary. And their goal is successful passage of power. So, for instance, what's been happening this year is we've been transferring the power to you guys in the vision. If you haven't noticed, that's what's been going on. Leaders do not clone others in their image, but their desire to help others discover themselves and deploy their abilities in their own generation. Listen, guys, the next generation of kids, the ones that you're teaching, the ones that you're writing books for, the ones that you guys are influencing and you're DJing for, those kids are going to be shining stars and they're going to influence their generation. But, you know, who's their influence right now? Beyonce, that last album came out, is like X-rated stuff. I mean, it's pretty raunchy. But, you know, you guys see who these kids are being influenced by. And then you have some good guys that come out, you know, and people love them. I guess probably Pharrell Williams, you know, he's very mature and articulate and, you know, he's 42 though, but he looks younger. He's 41, 40. Yeah. But people respect him and he's not raunchy and he's a very good producer. And so people respect him. So kids are looking for people like that. But I know it's important to have it in their generation. So that's the bigger picture here, is influencing them to be influencers in their generation. All right. We talked about that. True leadership is never given to one generation. As you can see, Melissa and some of, you know, we are influencing other generations. That's true leadership. Leadership that serves only its generation is destined to failure because it will die when you do. God is a God of generations. He always speaks about your seeds, the generation, the next generation, your sons and your daughters. Always think generationally, always. So if your vision dies with you, you have failed. You're a failure. So you got to get it out of you, write it down. What abilities do you bring to the table? And most leaders are preoccupied with papers rather than people. Just threw that in there. All right, measuring success, and we're going to finish off here. It's about intentionally releasing power, empowering others. And true leadership is seeing the consequences of your action and seeing further into the future than those around you can see. So I'm constantly looking, thinking, always, for all of us as a community. Always. And that's a very important factor of the meeting I'm going to have with Dr. Monroe. So I'm always thinking. Your interest should be in the future because that is where you're going to spend the rest of your life. This is just temporary. 2014 is temporary. What's 2020 look like? We re-signed our mortgage last month. You know, we got a new mortgage for our new house. And the maturity date is 2044. I have no words. 2044. It does. And I'm like, okay, that's 30 years from now. What is my life going to look like now? And I backtrack it and plan for it then. And I already know. I mean, I have a very good idea. Measure of true leadership. The ultimate goal of true leadership is not to maintain followers, but produce leaders. True leadership measures its success by the diminishing dependency factor of its follower. And you know, there's some of these, what do they call those? Hovering parents, right? Thank you. Helicopter parents. And they're always, you know, tied to the apron strings and all that. I'll never forget my whole entire life, for 18 years or however long I could start understanding my father. He always told us, he said, when you are 18, you're going to be kicked out of the nest and you're going, He always did that. So in my mind, when I was 18, I was on my own. And that's how it was. Financially, everything on my own. He did pay for college, but I had to go and have a babysitting job to buy my books and all that good stuff and whatever. So I always knew I was going to be independent at 18. And I wouldn't be going back home, living in the house, and none of this stuff going on. So it's a very good seed to plant in your kids' heads to be independent. They're 18. Go out and get it done. All right.
Back up just a second.
Yes.
After true leadership is seeing, thinking, planning for the future. I think you said something about your interest.
Your interest?
No, it was before what you just said.
Oh, your interest should be in the future because that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life.
That's it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the ultimate measure of true leadership is the ability to leave. All right. I should have printed off more of these pieces of paper, but what we're going to do now, and you can keep recording for one more minute, we're going to study our resources. And this is how you plan and you prepare. List the resources. We're going to study these factors of resources. Your number one resource is people. Number two resource is your experience. Very important. God does not waste anything. And number three resource is time. Do you have the time it takes to dedicate yourself to the vision or to your portion of it? Number fourth resource is relationships. Very important resource. Their connections. You know, what they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Very, very true. Another important resource is energy. Very valuable. That includes familiarity. Age sometimes can be a hindrance. That's why you need to bring fresh people into your group. As people come, they add to the vision, because the vision should always be growing. It's always in phases. The next resource is monetary. You notice that's not the first one we listed, because most people think. Now, it does take money to get things to happen, but in the kingdom, we look at our next resource, which is God. The most important factor is the God factor. So we never leave that one out. He's the ultimate source and gives you the capacity to tap into something that's beyond this earth. That's important. And we have all of these resources. Now, how we're going to use them and what we do with them is completely up to us. There will always be moments that we don't know how to fix things. And that's when we rely on the God factor. Always. You know, Moses, he had the vision, he's leading the people to the promised land, he came across the water. Well, what do I do now? God said, it's right in your hand. No problem. We got this. The God factor, very important. And that's the one we rely on the most. Because he will bring connections also. Let me tell you something. There's a verse in Isaiah where God says, God's zeal will perform this regarding his kingdom. God is very zealous about influencing the earth with the kingdom of God through the right people that he can trust. Let me add that to it. He will make it happen, but he needs you. He needs us in order to accomplish it. He's not coming down here. He already sent his son. He did his work, and the rest is up to us. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to set the goals and objectives and calibrate them. And I conclude. Debbie, you can stop recording. Goodbye, everybody. If you're watching, wish you were here. I know Sean's birthday is